So let's begin with a welcome and an overview from our hosts. You're about to hear a North American accent, and I want to emphasize that this is a Canadian accent, not an American accent. So I don't want you blaming him for Trump. So please will you welcome Julian Ashworth, who is the Director of Group Industry Policy here at BT. Julian.
Thank you very much, Roger. And I think it's South Park that actually says, at all times, blame Canada. So, yeah, but not for Trump, definitely not for that. So I am Julian Ashworth. I am the Director of Policy for BT Group. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to BT Tower today. Oh. Is that what I look like? Jeez. We're also pleased to have arranged some lovely weather for you to go up top the tower and have a fantastic view of London. For those of you who've not been to the tower before, there are a few interesting facts I'll just start off with about this iconic building that we find ourselves in for the discussion today. Started construction in 1961, and it took 13,000 tons of poured concrete to create the structure that we're in. It reaches 190 meters into the London skyline, which made it the tallest building in the UK up until about 1980. And at the time, it was built for a very economic £2.5 million, which today probably wouldn't get you even a decent-sized four-bedroom flat in central London. But if we put that money into real terms, today that's still only about £40 million, which wouldn't buy you much more than a four-bedroom flat. The tower, as you'll note, is rounded, very useful for adorning it with the microwave aerials that used to run our networks back in the day. Those have been largely replaced by fiber optic cables that run under the tower throughout London and throughout the UK. I'm also told that the design of the tower, the rounded sort of external design, was apparently helpful in withstanding the blast from a nuclear attack. So that might have been helpful in 1961 and 62, et cetera. Depending on where we get with the elections in a few days in the US, it may become helpful again. I don't know. Not to start off on a very negative foot. So construction completed in 64. By 65, it was open to the public. And despite being open to the public, it actually was an official secret for almost 30 years. It didn't exist. It wasn't on ordnance surveys, wasn't on maps. It was known for some reason as location 23, which begs the question, what were the other 22 locations? It wasn't until 1993 that MP Kate Hoey stood up in the House of Parliament and boldly said, my fellow parliamentarians, my fellow MPs, I hope I am covered by parliamentary privilege when I assert to you that the BT Tower does indeed exist. If only we had such robust debate on the digital economy bill these days. So yes, it does exist. We are very pleased to have you all here today to make good use of it for this important event with ESAN and to discuss the important issues around how do we make markets work better for consumers. This is important for all sectors. I've worked in energy, I now work in communications, and for all the sectors that Roger talked about, this is a critical issue. But I think none more critical than perhaps the communications sector. Our products and services in the past decade have gone from nice to have for the consumer to must have, part of their everyday, every facet of their life. And while things are not perfect in the communications sector by any stretch, and I'm not going to stand up and tell you that they are, nor are they as broken as I think you will feel if you read the popular press these days. In fact, it was Sharon White, Ofcom CEO, who herself said last year, the market in communications is working, is delivering for consumers more today than it was 10 years ago. Most are benefiting from increased value, expanded choice, thanks to competition and innovation in the sector. And as I say, things are not perfect, but consumers in the UK are better served than many other markets. I'm a Canadian. 15 years ago, I used to kiss the ground when I got back to Canada because the quality of communications and connectivity there was far superior to the UK. It's the other way around now. And I say that with no umbrage to my home nation, but I find coming back to the UK after visiting the family, I don't kiss the ground, but I am thankful for the quality of services. I'm still aggravated from time to time, but I think overall the quality of services in the UK stands it very well. Versus international peers in Europe, we exceed all of our major comparators. We think about Italy, Spain, France, Germany, similar sized economies, similar geography sizes. We fare very well in terms of competition, in terms of price, coverage, access, affordability. all the metrics that really matter, the UK does well. There's still more to do. A litany of external surveys also back this up. There's the McKinsey survey, BCG, E-Economy Index, the EU Commission's Digital Readiness Index, all put the UK very favorably ahead of EU peers. And most recently, Wired magazine proclaimed that UK citizens have, quote, the best digital lives in Europe. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'll take it anyway, and I think depending on where we go from Brexit, I think it'll be very important for us to have digital lives, because I'm not sure how our non-digital lives will fare. This has been delivered primarily through innovation, investment, and competition. And BT has contributed to this over the past decade with £20 billion of investment in the UK. And I would struggle to think of another business that has invested so much in the UK market. Half of this investment has gone into the Openreach network, which is completely open and accessible to any other CP customer competitor. Over 500 CPs use this network today to offer services to consumers, and competition has delivered benefits. And BT itself, and BT Retail uses the network, of course, and touches the lives of millions of consumers. We've got 9 million broadband customers, we've got 30 million mobile customers, 5 million BT Sport customers in a very short period of time, and 1.7 million pay TV customers. And given the size of those relationships, and given the fact that the markets are not growing massively at a top line, and there's massive competition, the most important thing for our strategy is to found it on broadening and deepening those customer relationships. And we do this by understanding their needs and reacting and serving them. That's why each year we spend £4 million on doing market research. And every quarter we do surveys with 45,000 customers, finding out what they think of our brands, our products, and our services. And it's why continuously we are looking at data analytics to understand exactly how they're using our products, how they're engaging with our online service, and how they're engaging with our CSRs in the call center. But it's not just about looking at the data. It's about engaging externally. Third parties, customer advocacy groups such as WICH, Citizens Advice Bureau, Communications Consumer Panel, all play a vital role. You're all the voice of the consumer, and a much more educated voice of the consumer as well. But you're also a critical friend to the industry. Although sometimes we wish you'd be more the friend than the critic, I think overall we're very pleased, and we find that frisson, that engagement very helpful. It's informed the development of many services, including BT Basic and Home Saver services. It's helped us push our thinking around how we address nuisance calls. We've rolled out new technologies and services this year that we think will help address that scourge. It's provided robust sounding boards, policy input, feedback around areas such as switching and consumer compensation. But in addition to areas where I think we generally agree, there are also areas where we disagree. For example, oversight of the regulator with Ofcom. Most of the industry, in terms of favoring investment, has said we need strong oversight of Ofcom. They need to be accountable in order to deliver good regulation of the sector. About 95% of the investors in this sector have said that. And I think in the absence of that, in the absence of a merits-based appeal system, there is a long-term threat. And it would be great to hear from the panel and from others how they think that this will affect the sector in the long run. Also, there are areas where we wish to be more vocal, like consumer advocacy groups. For example, in the most recent increase that we've seen in taxation on network infrastructure, business rates, it's public knowledge that there is almost a 400% increase on business rates for networks. And that's going to have a detrimental impact on the sector, on customers, on investment. And I haven't seen a lot from the customer advocacy groups on that. And it'd be great to hear more about their positions on it. And that's because consumer benefit, as I said before, ultimately is driven by investment. That's why BT is investing over £6 billion for the next 3 years. In mobile, we're investing to hit 92% in geographic coverage by the end of next year. We're trying to hit 95% in geographic coverage by 2020. In fixed broadband, the UK has just hit 90%, which again leads all major EU nations. And we're trying to hit 95% to support the government's objective by the end of 2017. And the last 5%, many of you will be aware that BT has made a public offer to ensure that everyone can access good broadband services. They can access the HD TV streams, iPlayer, funny cat videos, online gaming, whatever it is they're trying to do. Everyone in the UK should be able to do that, and we firmly believe that at BT. We are also developing ultra-fast technologies to go beyond the next decade. We're piloting G.fast, and we think we can roll it out at pace and scale, and we are committed and made an offer to deliver that to 10 million customers by the end of 2020. And on service, we're hiring 900 new engineers, so we can cut our fault rates in half this year, so we can continue to hit Ofcom's 60 minimum service level targets, and then going forward, as they increase those, so we can continue to exceed those targets. And in retail, we're reshoring customer service. By next year, we expect to have over 90% of our customer service reps in the UK. That's good for UK jobs. It's good for the customer. So despite the headlines, there is reason to be optimistic, but there's clearly much more to do. This is a fast-moving landscape, and customer expectations are increasing significantly. The prize is too great to fail. We need to work together on this. Policymakers, regulators, consumer advocacy groups, and the industry. And that's why, again, we're very pleased to host events today. And I'm going to stop now. I think I probably said enough, but I am going to join the panel in a fit of madness. I've offered myself to take a few questions, so I will move over there now, and thank you very much for joining us today.